joining us now. Fred Hicks, Hicks Evaluation Group President, also with us. Welcome to you both. David, let me start with you first. So is there a chance that they could, Biden's team, use the State of the Union as this reset that they hoped for?
Sandra, Joe Biden could ride his bike into the House chamber and do calisthenics his entire State of the Union address. And it's not going to change independents' view that it is his policies that have made things worse. I mean, you go to the grocery store and you spend $100, you're spending more because of Joe Biden's inflation. If you go to the gas station right now, you're still paying $33 more in gas than you did when Joe Biden came into office. And you see that becoming crystallized in states like Michigan, where just last week you saw focus groups where independent voters who voted for Donald Trump in 2016, then voted for Joe Biden in 2020, are now leading towards Donald Trump again in 2024. It's who wins independence that will ultimately win this election. And right now, that's Joe Biden's big problem.
Really interesting. Fred, let me ask you about the New York Times saying this. There's the media coverage of Biden's age, of course, that is coming into question. The publisher of the New York Times said in a new interview, quote, "We are going to continue to report fully and fairly, not just on Donald Trump, but also on President Joe Biden. He's a historically unpopular incumbent and the oldest man to ever hold this office." We've reported on both of those realities extensively, and the White House has been extremely upset about it. I mean, this coming from the New York Times, Fred.
You know, the New York Times coverage of President Biden's age has been, I think, pretty laughable, because the reality is that you're only talking about 3 or 4 years separating the two, yet you would think that there's a 10, 15, 20-year gap, or that President Biden is running against President Obama 2008, and that's simply not the case. Donald Trump has had a number of gaffes on the campaign trail and during his presidency, and even before he was president, and so that if we're going to talk about it, then let's talk about it and let's tell the full story. And so it's not, there's a false equivalency going on right now, and that needs to end, and we need to talk about it as a holistic, in a holistic manner.
Because, of course, David, the left is very quick to point out that Donald Trump is only a couple years behind Joe Biden.
Let me assure you, no campaign thinks the media is covering them properly unless everything they say is glowing. But there is a reason why Joe Biden's approval rating is in the low 30s. Americans know why they don't like his policies, that we are now paying more for everyday items because of him. The border is not secure. You go down through every major issue that voters say is important. They believe Joe Biden has made things worse during his presidency, and it doesn't matter. His messaging is off, and it's hard to see. Democrats have said Joe Biden's going to be our guy, and they now are in the realm of losing Senate seats because of how bad Joe Biden's going to do in competitive states.
Well, Fred, one thing's for sure. We still have a long way to go till November. Final thought from you.
You know, we do, Sandra. My final thought on this is this. Donald Trump lost a popular vote in 2016. He lost a popular vote in 2020. I believe he'll lose it again in 2024. And no matter how much David and his friends say it, the reality is that America's in a much stronger position than we were 4 years ago.
All right, David, I'll give you 20 seconds.
Well, that's not what voters are saying in the polls. You see a competitive race in all of the target states. It's going to be decided in about 7 states. And today, this is a toss-up race, and numbers heading more towards Donald Trump as Biden's coalition falls apart.
Yeah.
More Hispanic voters are looking towards Donald Trump.
Yeah.
More African-American voters are looking. The coalition's falling apart.
Look, when you see 7 out of 10 New York voters say Biden's unfit for a second term in this deep blue state, that is worth noting. David, Fred, thank you. And thank you so much for watching the Faulkner Focus. I'm Sandra Smith in for Harris, and I'll see you at 1 o'clock Eastern Time for America Reports with my colleague John Roberts. Outnumbered is up after the break.